meaningful Week 18 game.
Back.
You know, trying to get the 7 seed with an 8th win. But I'm not buying it. I guess I just haven't totally bought into the whole Taylor Heineke experience.
I think we're on the same page on this because we both locked up the Cowboys this week as our pick of the week. And it's like, man, does Washington deserve credit for getting off the mat and winning 4 straight? Absolutely. But when you watch, for instance, that Raiders game, do you see a team that's like firing on all cylinders and they're ready to go on a major December push? I didn't see that. I saw a team that I thought was a little bit lucky.
I mean, they put it on the Buccaneers. That matters to me. And I think this is something that we've seen with Ron Rivera's teams before. They heat up as they get down the stretch. And I think it's to do what they've done with Taylor Heineke and to develop them the way they have. Like, I don't look past that. I mean, I get they're not the Dallas Cowboys necessarily.
Okay, so what do you let's say heat up. Let's say the Arizona Cardinals are a perfectly cooked grilled chicken, 165 degrees in the middle. You want to go with a different one? How about a little beef? How about a perfect steak, about 135 degrees, medium temp?
Hey, where are we going here?
What's the temperature of a heating up Washington team? Because I think it's like, I don't know, like a warm piece of broccoli. It's nothing that really gets me excited.
I mean, I get it. You guys are in lockstep and not believing in this team, but it's like.
But you really do.
What are they good at?
I'm not saying that they're going to beat Dallas, but I think they are good at it. Their defense has certainly improved, and they've been spicy on offense to some degree. Antonio Gibson's been one of the best running backs in the league of late.
You watch that Bucs game, for instance. They gave up scores, I think, on 7 of their last 9 drives of that game, and then they played the Panthers. And that offense, the Seahawks, and what was going on there, they do a good job against. I think they need to play a real team. I think it'll happen.
Also, I don't buy into Mark on it. I don't buy that you really like Washington.
I have my list of pet teams, and they're like number 4.
He kind of likes it.
I mean, there's something about them.
How about another one of your pet teams, the New York Giants?
They are not a pet team. They're actually quite annoying me at the moment. I would say this: everything is smelly. Wild animals hovering around New York. It's not a pleasure of mine to rip on the Giants because it's been going on all season long. But Dan and I, we grew up out in the East, in the tri-state area, and back in those days, you'd get
Wagons East.
Well, I mean, on Sunday, you'd gather the family around and you'd watch the Giants thump somebody, and they had an identity, had a certain verve about them, a certain spirit, and it's been gone. Since 2017. The second worst team winning percentage-wise in the league is the New York Giants. The first worst team is the Jets. New York football is on the brink right now. And when I say that wild animals are hovering, I think real changes are ahead. We already know that's probably the case with the general manager position. It's the case with the head coach position, I think. They cannot sit and rest on their laurels because there are no laurels.
So if you know Giants history, like we grew up 80s, 90s, and even people that grew up and came of age in the 2000s, and they had the 2 titles there.
There were some of those people
under
too.
Coughlin. Like you think of the Giants as that team, that they're usually respectable, sometimes championship level. But this, if you're an older Giants fan, you're thinking this feels like the 70s. This feels like pre-Parcells, early 80s, where they were just bad every year. And it has been a funk that's been going on for an extended stretch, really since that second Super Bowl win over the Patriots. And yes, I think at a certain point, that ownership, the Mars, they're going to say like, man, this has gone on long enough. We need a big reboot. I think
they keep doing that, though, and they keep making the same mistake, which is that, okay, let's fire the coach, but keep the GM. Okay, let's fire the GM, but keep the coach. Okay, let's fire the coach, but keep the, and they keep going back and forth. And there is a lot of whispers that Joe Judge is safe here, that Joe Judge could be helping to pick the next GM. That doesn't make any sense. When I look at the Giants, I think, what is Joe Judge helping here? It's not game management with his special teams and him punting on 4th and 2 when they're in plus territory. It's not good luck. He's brought the bad injury luck. Might have Jake Fromm starting this game in L.A.
Listen, nobody was really hot about Jason Garrett. That was not a great hired offense coordinator. The injuries, obviously, a big deal. It's not the most talented roster to start with. It's hard to really assess Joe Judge, but at the same time, if they hire a front office personnel or interview a guy that they really love, and the guy's strong about having my own pick, you might have to go down that road. Because I agree, when it's mismatched, that's trouble. Greggy, Eagles.
Minshew maniacs coming out in force, like Philadelphia and their media love this. It's like, let's calm down, Minshew maniacs. I'm kind of talking to Mark.
So what is this?
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, what is?
Hi, Mark. I mean, you are the Minshew maniac.
I don't remember
Minshew.
going on some sort of Sia poem about how they should stick
For
with him. I
years.
think for years, yeah, but he's the backup. He came in and he did his job. I think in general, where I agree with you,
There's a lot of questions being asked in Philly this week, like, no, the offense looked a little different.
But I mean, we understand with Philadelphia that stuff's going to happen, right? But
I mean, we could have completed some of these passes.
He had 2 nice throws down the field to Dallas
nice
Goedert.
play.
This is one of them.
Yes.
The one moving left and the seam ball to Goddard. Other than that, it was a bunch of 5-yard throws and screens.
Look at the coverage here.
Look how wide open he is.
Why are we going
By
out
the way,
of
that
our
was
way
3rd and 20.
to slander and discredit what he came in and did a great job?
He did a great job, but I don't need to hear that Jalen Hurts couldn't have lit up the Jets too. That's my point. Is like
I don't think
Hurts
he's taken Jalen Hurts' job on any level. But Minshew, who we were wondering, is he a starter or he's a backup? He's got a job in the NFL for the next decade, no problem.
And that's great. And Jalen Hurts, it is annoying that he just happened to have one bad game right before the injury, and then the Philly press and Eagles fans are going nuts because there's a romanticized viewpoint of Minshew and what he is and what he could be. And Hurts is like all season be like, hey, I'm 23. Hey, I'm playing at a really high level almost every week. Why don't you get behind me? I get the frustration.
This whole segment, and it's for each of these teams, is Dan and Greg going against what Mark says. So it's like Minshew is a pet dislike for Dan, so you're just teeing up Dan. I get it.
Is impressive to me, and he looked comfortable. But I'm not taking much out of that game where it was like a bunch of 5-yard dump-offs. Jalen Hurts has 4 games here to go get them to the playoffs. I think he might do it.
Well, that's your thing.
Take
you don't take anything from the Bills getting slashed by the Patriots. You just take things and put them in a box that doesn't
I
count.
like Gardner Minshew. I don't like the oversaturation in terms of the praise from people like you.
I mean, I didn't say a word about him on our last show, and we haven't heard from him in a year.
Look, we got to fill this space every week. 2 hours, all 32 teams.
Wow. I'll tell you what, Mark, you did a good job in that segment because there was a lot of heat coming, and you deflected it beautifully.
You bring it.
Say.
You keep trying to bring it.
All right, we are just getting started. The NFC West coming up next. Huge game coming up this weekend. All right, the Around the NFL broadcast rolls on. Time for the NFC West. You could even just could have taken the drink ticket and just thrown it up in the air. Someone finds it on the floor like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
I mean, it's been much more valuable to be on your radar to such a degree that we've talked about this 4 or 5 times at this point.
You knew it enough that you saw this guy that you could have given it to. So at that point, you decided, I'm not going to bring it back to my friends. Or even just, not even a close friend if you don't want to say all the goodbyes. There's a bunch of people you know who just work here.
I mean, by the way, Greg did not even pick up the drink tickets at the check-in.
That's a whole
Again, we're skating
I gave some away.
Totally.
The Arizona Cardinals of the NFC West. That's where we start things off. Facts. Rams need to beat the Cardinals simply to stay alive in the NFC West in Week 14. And isn't that amazing that the Cardinals are where they are? What a season they've had. What to come from being completely overlooked in the summer by us, by basically everyone in the football cognoscente.
So many funny voices.
And
already.
now they are in complete control of this division, and they are hosting the Rams. It feels like a really good spot for them in prime time, and if they win this game, they will win the NFC West, and it sets them up very well to be the #1 seed.
I think that part of the doubt was the way that they finished last year, which had a lot to do with Kyler Murray's injury. It was doubt in Cliff Kingsbury as a pro coach and whether that program and his scheme would work. In a year where every
hype
team
around all the other teams.
I think in a year where every other team is such a roller coaster ride, their variance for good and bad has been so even keeled that they stand out. And it's really much more on the Rams to show that they can stand up to that, because the Cardinals.
Yet there's still doubt, though.
They what?
Don't you think there's still doubt on this Cardinals team? Like, they're only 2.5-point favorites in this game. A wise man once told me the home 2.5-point favorite is like, they don't believe in you. They're begging. They're begging you to take them because they sort of believe, and I'm talking about Vegas here, in the Rams a little more, which surprises me, because if you just look at the first 3 months of the season, and we want that to mean a lot, the Cardinals have been the best team in the NFL. Now, does that mean they're going to be the best team over the next 5 weeks? Doesn't mean that. We know that.
Well,
Go prove it to us, because you're right. It's a crossroads game. The Cardinals season really is so different depending on whether they win or lose.
If it was the Los Angeles Cardinals, we wouldn't have this issue. They're in Arizona. There's a small press corps. They're mostly ignored, and what they've done has been mostly ignored. Unfair. I don't like it.
All right. Well,
Go
they're
win an
10-2.
MVP, Kyler Murray. Monday
Kyler
night.
Murray can win the MVP.
Go get it.
And I think Cliff Kingsbury right now is the coach of the year. This is a guy, when we were talking about entering the season, who could be on the hot seat by the end of the year.
Absolutely.
His name came up in many a conversation, and now look where they are. Mark on the Rams.
Well, let's talk about the Rams. I think a lot of big brands are on the line for the Rams.
Big old brands.
Look at their last 5 wins. It's been the Seahawks, the Lions, the Giants, the Texans, and the Jaguars. These are the worst teams in football. They've been thumped by the good teams, and questions have arisen about Sean McVay's offense. Can he work them out of this? Are they tough enough? Matthew Stafford, you can't call him Matt Stafford, as our friend Petros Papadakis learned. His wife doesn't like that, but it's Matthew Stafford, and it's just
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, apparently you have to call him Matthew Stafford. But Odell Beckham, I mean, Von Miller, you made these trades for these guys. When is this all going to come together? I think this is the game where on national television, if they get whipped the way they did by Arizona the last time, the Los Angeles Rams brand, which we are sort of, contractually obligated to pump up left and right, takes a big hit.
You always are poking
holes
a big hit on them. Here's what they are. They're like an 8-4 team who have not shown up in the big games, but that are pretty good. I mean, they do have like the offensive player of the year right now to me in Cooper Kupp. They've done some good things. If they were in the AFC, they might have the 1 seed right now. And yet I don't trust them. Like, I just don't. I want to see it. It makes sense to me in terms of like the narrative of this season, though, that the Rams do find a way to win this game, like that they are going to be part of this NFC mix. I think they know how big this game is.
It is huge. So huge. Like the Cardinals, even though the #1 seed in the NFC would be in grave danger if you lost this week and Green Bay beats the Bears, as everyone expects on Sunday night. If the Rams lost this game, you look at their schedule ahead, and they can miss the playoffs entirely. It could really spiral on Los Angeles. And I think this will be a very I think the Rams can win, but also there have been enough signs that they're not ready for this moment that you can't be confident. I don't think any Rams fan is confident they're going to play well.
Every team is different. Every year is different. And, like, they have to build that sort of armor or that belief, like, late in a game against a big team. Like, the only way you do it is actually do it. It felt like they won the Super Bowl when they beat the Bucs in Week 3. That's been the highlight of their season.
Interesting.
They were killed by the Cardinals the next week. That was another part of their season.
You hate the Rams.
I just...
Greg on the 49ers.
I love this 49ers team. So does Mark. And just watching last week, ask like the dummy question. Is there any reason why they can't just throw it to George Kittle like this every week? I kind of mean it. Like, what am
Can
I
I give you
missing
a
here?
quick answer?
Yeah.
He'll get hurt. He gets hurt all the time.
He's been hurt a lot, but it's like, okay, Debo's out. Let's just feed George Kittle. Oh, yeah, he's the best tight end in the league. He's the closest thing that I've seen to peak Gronk. Like, maybe he hasn't been 100%, but he's 100% now. He showed that. Let's keep feeding the man.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I mean, the play that he made down the sideline, and I believe it's right here, is a play that, yes, you could see maybe Pete Gronk doing it. It's the type of play you expect that Kyle Pitts might do down the line. Like, that's some special athleticism right there. And, yeah, that's the only thing that stops him from being the clear-cut best tight end in the league, top 5 player in the league, because he's got everything that you want. It's just health. Can he stay healthy if he remains a guy that's getting targeted 10 times a game?
I love it, Greg. I mean, it's like, keep it simple. I mean, the Seahawks are giving up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends in the league, and you didn't have
Good fantasy
Debo.
nug.
Look at
Listen,
that. Look at that.
I don't play it, but I study it.
Where did
That's
you
how it
get
works.
that from? Like,
It's called research, Greg. It's right here on the laptop.
Okay.
You just do some work sometimes.
You didn't show it to me. You showed it to the camera.
Well, I'm letting the audience know, but so I'm just saying, I think it was a little bit of a matchup situation there, but why not? I mean, he is the most dominant tight end outside of Travis Kelce in the NFL right now.
Cincinnati lost Logan Wilson last week, who's been really good for them at linebacker. Their safeties have maybe a little more name than game this year. I think he could have another big game.
Here's another reason why you shouldn't get crazy about throwing to George Kittle over and over. The idea of Jimmy Garoppolo just forcing throws over the middle 20 times a game. I got a feeling bad things might come of that. Kyle Shanahan's head almost.
He was so
we're
annoyed.
throwing bouquets at the feet of the Niners. They lost in Seattle last week. It didn't work ultimately. Not that it was because George Kittle, but I don't know, man.
Win this game.
That Garoppolo. Shanahan. We always talk about Kirk Cousins and Zimmer. Shanahan and Garoppolo. That's another
He blew his top
interesting.
last week. Yeah.
All right, finally, Greg on the Seahawks.
This Seahawks team is one that I just kind of can't believe they're dead until they're fully dead. I'm just wondering, do they have one more moment left in them this season? I don't even mean that they necessarily make the playoffs or they win a playoff game, but are we going to be sitting here with this Seahawks team? And I guess this is what I'm imagining, that they win this week against Houston. They're at the Rams maybe week 15. If nothing else, they're late and they're in that game and they're ahead and everyone's thinking oh, the Seahawks are coming back. Because after that, it's the Bears and the Lions and maybe it's the Cardinals even resting people in week 18. Do they have one more moment, this era, which has been so good under Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson?
Yeah, you know what? I'm good. I feel like I've read this book and seen this movie 75 times. That I don't necessarily
but not
need
in
it
this
happen again.
version where they're 4-8 and that feels like how it should go out. Them winning a bunch
feel
of
satisfied
games
on
and
the
getting
Seahawks
to 7
front.
seed.
It's just, Pete Carroll said in the locker room after the game, we're not dead yet. And like you're saying, if they could beat the Rams next week, they're going to win against Houston 5-8, beat the Rams 6-8, beat the Bears 7-8, beat the Lions 8-8, and then they're at Arizona. Who knows if Arizona even has something to play for?
8-9 might get you into the NFC playoffs. Right now, a losing record is in.
And that doesn't mean, Mark, that I believe in the Seahawks or that the Seahawks are a Super Bowl contender, but the schedule sets up well for them. That 49ers win was a sneaky, annoying thing if you wanted to say bye-bye to Seattle
Well, I
completely.
forked them, and I'm not in any way, and thanks for trying to preempt my response to whatever you had said there. I don't think that you're on Seahawks' corner. I hear what you're saying. But if they went and beat the Rams, by the way, there's going to be pitchfully at SoFi across the street
If
here.
nothing else, right, because the Rams have owned them, to be fair, in recent years. If nothing else, I guess I do want that. I want a moment. I don't want them to be totally dead. I want them in this ugly NFC mix, with the Vikings.
I feel totally satisfied with what's happening to them
I want
right now.
4-13 because the Jets have their draft pick. So give me that top 5 pick. But the schedule sets up,
It's all about next week.
they'll go 7-10.
You gotta
8-9, it'll be
8-9.
highly annoying.
All right, that's it. That's the NFC West. We are flying. Things are rolling. Coming up next, there he is. Packers coming off their bye. The Vikings coming off an insane game on Thursday night. We'll get to that and more up next on the broadcast. Oh, yeah, we got to talk about the Bears, too. Welcome back to the broadcast. We keep moving through the NFC. Now it's time to hit the North. And to begin that process, I turn again to the great Mark Sessler.
Yeah, Mark. Let's go,
yeah,
Mark.
baby.
Yay, hey.
What
The
is happening?
Cheeseheads.
The Packers. I would just say we're about to find out why this Packers team is a new creation. I have been down on the Packers since I've known you guys just because it's been Aaron Rodgers and a bunch of stuff around him. I think now with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, Dan, it was a week ago on this award-winning television show that you called Green Bay the team with the last real home field advantage.
Yes.
I totally buy it. I think we're getting into that blustery, freezing, frigid time of year where the best duo of running backs in the league are going to change the way Green Bay can destroy people. And we're not going to have to deal with games with Aaron Rodgers giving us that little look, from the huddle while they're down by 10 points saying, uh-oh, I know I'm smarter than you and it's not my fault that we're losing our 18th straight playoff game. It's on everyone else, where it's not going to be that way this time because it's not all about Aaron Rodgers. You're going to thump people with the ground
but isn't
game.
it still all about Aaron Rodgers ultimately?
I think
he's
they're
what makes
different
them
this year. They're a little
special.
different this year.
They have a great team. They're my favorite team. I have them as the number one team in the power rankings this week. I have the Cardinals too. I just think they have the better quarterback. I do like their depth on both sides of the ball. I thought it was interesting, Mark, that you have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones is the best running back duo in the league, not Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. That's interesting.
Well, they haven't played together a lot, Chubb and Hunt.
right.
These guys, I think they're doing it here.
And I think A.J. Dillon, and I know Aaron Jones has now had a bye week to get back from, continue to recover from the knee injury, and he came back the week before. I think Dillon's going to stay in this attack because I think they realize they've hit on something here where they could use Dillon as a battering ram, although he could catch the ball out of the backfield too. And then Aaron Jones can, get work in as well on both sides. I think the offense is in a really good place.
They are sort of like the anti-Rams, where I was saying the Rams need to prove that they can win these difficult situation types of games. That's all the Packers have done. You can almost look at it as an advantage that they've had all these injuries because once you get some of these guys back, for the most part, they're coming back. Jair Alexander, David Bakhtiari, the depth and the defense and the confidence that they can win any kind of game. And Rodgers was playing his best before the bye. I think he has a chance to win back-to-back MVPs. That would be the first person since Peyton Manning to do that.
Unbelievable. All right, now the Bears. Here's the thing. Even Bears fans don't want the Bears on Sunday Night Football this week. And, I'm not trying to skew negative, but it's just the truth. It's just the fact that the Packers, where they are, and look at me getting overly confident about anything in the 2021 NFL season. Watch the Bears beat Green Bay. But I just thought this was surprising. I guess here's the positive. We don't need to see a boring Chicago team in primetime in December, but at least we get Justin Fields back on the field and we get to see his progression because it's kind of gotten forgotten because there's been so much Matt Nagy nonsense and the injuries for Fields, but he has flashed in moments and looked like a potential big-time prospect. Now he gets a nice stage.
Thank God that he is part of this game because I think we've struggled even on this show and on our podcast to come up with Bears topics that aren't the same thing over and over. They had a chance to flex this. There's clearly some guy in that schedule-making group on Park Avenue that's like, you're going to put my little Bears on national television at some point. Well, you should have done it way long time ago. This is way too late in the year. You could have flexed this out. Bad job.
It's a big market, Chicago, but they always put this game on Sunday Night Football, and it's never good. Now, it was a pretty decent game the first time around. That was the game where, of course, Aaron Rodgers
1906?
decided that he owned the Bears. That was because he needed a late touchdown to go up 2 scores. It was a competitive game. I remember being assigned that game for our podcast.
What a moment.
It was solid entertainment. There he is. Allen Robinson's back.
I own you.
Akeem Hicks is back. But it's a different Aaron Rodgers. He is playing better now, and their offense is better now, I think, than it was back then.
Did we mention Allen Robinson's back in the lineup?
I just
Good.
did, like 5 seconds ago.
Oh,
How about
good.
do something?
5 seconds ago.
Well, I don't know if it's Allen Robinson's fault. I think it's weird that Allen Robinson is going to be playing somewhere else next year. They just kind of punted on Allen Robinson this year, their last season. I don't know if it was out of spite or.
I mean, among other things they punted on, but you're right.
So the Bears are where the Bears are, but they got 2 minutes. So good for them. All right, Greg, on the Vikings.
Ooh, Vikings. This has been the team of Zeus TL, Dan Squad all year. I'm just asking, are you not entertained?
Hell yeah.
Did we not have some fun on Thursday Night Football?
Hell yeah.
I thought it was fun when it was a blowout. I was with Mark, too. Because they're an entertaining team. Dalvin Cook. entertaining player.
Hell
Justin
yeah.
Jefferson, entertaining player. Kirk Cousins is up and down, entertaining.
Yeah.
And then when you got a 29-0 lead, we think it's over. And look at the fun they
I
added
love
to
it.
our lives.
It is so fun. That's the only thing we talked about it on the podcast last night. The Vikings are box office. If you have to pick one team to spend 3.5 hours with on an NFL week, pick the Vikings, because it doesn't matter who they play, they will give you a dramatic game. And that's, again, what we got. But at the same time, like when you're up 29-0 in the third quarter and you have to hold your breath on the last play of the game, there is something wrong with you. There is something
against
inside
the Steelers,
them.
against Pittsburgh, 29-0, that would have been the biggest
There
comeback
is
in the
something
history of the NFL.
in Minnesota's DNA that has no ability to close out a game, and it gets in their head as soon as the other team punches.
They fooled me. I mean, it was 29-0, and I put out a tweet that said, I'm not sure Steelers fans can read this, but your team is incomplete. And a series of anti-Steelers tweets, and then bang, they're climbing back into the game. It's the Vikings. You should have known that was going to happen.
Saying people from Pittsburgh.
They
literacy.
Cleveland and Pittsburgh go back at each other. But yes,
tough. I think adult literacy is like a serious problem.
Well, that's very brave of you, Greg, to stand up on that issue. I think it's there's some sort of joke wrapped in there.
Greg's a big white horse is going to walk in here. Greg's going to wave and walk
Every
off.
game is amazing. The Lions game
Spot
was
off.
amazing. The Bengals, like week one, it started amazing.
game.
The Cardinals game was amazing.
Every game. They are fun. And Kirk Cousins
Get into
played
the playoffs.
terribly
Worst
in
game
this
of the year.
game. In fact, if he just makes 3 or 4 throws that he should make, they probably win this game going away. But they did win the game going away. And then it was just such a bonkers team.
I felt good about it because now I can comfortably move him down in the QB index. Like he was uncomfortably high. And
he should be around 10 to 12.
He was like number 6 because the rest of the league has come back to him this year, but now
he got it right.
Finally, Mark, Lions.
I would just say with the Lions, it's lovable and sort of sucky is not the worst thing to be in the NFL sometimes.
That's on NFL Network right now, and I love you for it.
Right. Well, you're bringing back a lot of words. Smelly and sucky both made it. And you don't hear a lot of
Bringing
either
back.
one.
I mean, this is part of the lexicon. I would just say this.
Freedom.
They have the worst record in the league, but I put together teams I think that are much more watchable and fun than.
Okay.
The Jaguars, the Texans, the Jets, Dan, the Bears, the Giants, the Seahawks. Give me a break with those guys. Like the Lions have been entertaining week after week for the most part. Outside of a couple wayward blowouts, I mean, they tied Pittsburgh. They did what they did last week. That was amazing. I think it's a selling point for Dan Campbell to say, yes, we are sort of sucky, but we are sort of lovable, and we've been watchable, and we'll be better next year.
Yeah, but they're like the Vikings. The whole game's fun to watch. The Titans, I'll tune in with 3 minutes left. The rest of it's not that fun. Because
the bar
rest
is
of it,
low.
You're
The bar
still
is
watching
lower
the
here.
least talented team in the league with Jared Goff running it in like a low-scoring game. Their defense has been better, but it's not.
I'm not saying it's a visual carnival from wire to wire, but it's got its
The
moments.
Vikings is appointment television because it feels relevant, the teams that are playing most weeks. The Lions, it's a weird situation where the other team they're playing is just like chewing their fingernails down to the nubs. It's like, we can't blow this to the Lions. And then they usually don't. I'm just happy they got the win. And I hope they'll get a couple more. And then they can go into the offseason, 3-12-1 or whatever, or 3-13-1, and then make some moves. Don't win too many games because you want that draft pick to be as good as possible. Let's get 2 or 3 wins and then start building up the roster.
This is a winnable game. I'm a little surprised here the Broncos are 2-score favorites. Disrespectful. Maybe the Rainmaker will come out on the network. Yeah, I do like because they've been in every game, and their defense is legitimately playing hard, and any defense that plays hard usually keeps the Broncos under about 20 points.
All right. Let's move on. Let's head on to break. But don't worry, we'll be back to talk NFC South. Greg snorted because he's so excited to talk about the Bucks, Panthers, Falcons, and his beloved Saints looking to get off the
One of the worst
schneid.
years in the NFC South I can remember.
Oucher. Buckle up.
It's always like the underrated one, but now.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. We're going around the NFL, and it's time now to hit the NFC South. And when you talk the NFC South, you better start with the champs.
When you start with the champs, you better start with Tom Brady. I mean, it's his team, it's his organization more than ever. Bruce Arians says Antonio Brown, when he comes to the Bucs, he's got a one-strike penalty. Where's Antonio Brown?
Stupid.
Still on the team. To me, that's a Tom Brady thing. Then to start last week's game, we are watching 13 straight passes. That, to me, is Tom Brady. Like, that is what the Patriots did. When you present a certain defense, he's going to make you change out of that defense. And if you don't do it, they're just going to throw every single snap. And that's what he did. Bruce Arians would have never done that. He's like, we got to run the ball type of guy.
It's atypical for Arians, too, because everywhere he's been, it's been the Bruce Arians offense. And I think someone like Byron Leftwich, you forget they even have an offensive coordinator because of someone like Tom Brady. And I think they're all probably collaborating, but it would probably be news if we got to a point in life where Tom Brady was less powerful, because he only seems to gain power with every day wherever he's at.
In a year where the consistency in the level of play at quarterback has been all over the map, Brady continues to be the one constant. He leads the league with 34 touchdown passes. He leads the league at passing yards. He threw 51 passes, to Greg's point, this past Sunday. And he's 44. And it's just like, it doesn't matter how old he is, because he could still be the driver of the offense.
And you know what? One of the reasons why he's the GOAT is because this week, in this big game against the Bills, wouldn't surprise me at all if he's handing it off to Leonard Fournette 35 times, because Tom Brady and Leftwich and Arians thinks that's like the best thing to do.
Well, as long as Tom gets a couple touchdown passes.
No, that's not what I mean.
Also.
Oh, come on.
He's been pretty good against the Bills.
No.
He would like to get a fourth MVP. He's like, I should definitely have more than 3 MVPs. I want to win a fourth.
I mean, he should.
That's
so
now on his radar.
His argument is correct. He should have about 9.
He's trying to win the streaming wars, with this show while he's still playing. He's trying to win a lot of places.
All right, Mark, the Panthers, that's a team that hasn't won a lot at all lately.
Yeah, I feel like you guys know that I'm a Rule light.
Break out those bifocals.
I think me and Matt Rule have hit that point where, when you're in that adorable relationship that a couple months in starts to get, it just becomes a ton of work.
Yeah.
It's too much. And you've gone past the honeymoon period where it's like, let's not order 2 extra desserts for $80. We're over that. Let's get down to work. It's a lot of, tough texts, things like that. It's back in the old dating days.
Sure.
If we were on Match.com, me and Matt Rule right now, I think I might be not swiping right if that even happens on that device. I look
You're
at what's
all over
going
the
on.
place now, and I
Well,
love
because
it.
you know what? I'm a little heartbroken. I had high hopes for Matt Rule for this whole situation. I thought he was going to come in and be
breaking
Jimmy
up with
Johnson.
Matt Rule on
No,
national television?
I'm just saying that it's in a challenging spot.
It's not you, it's me, Matt.
Exactly. I mean, I don't think they had a good plan at quarterback for the second straight year. No offense to Teddy Bridgewater, Greg.
That's an understatement.
It is an understatement.
This year.
Then they just, in one of the more stunning moves, he fires his offensive coordinator who came in with a high Q rating. Things feel chaotic to me, and I'm a little concerned with the state of the Panthers and where Rule is at with the whole thing.
Cut and run, baby.
My biggest takeaway from all that was how much Mark hated the period where he had to pretend like he liked desserts while he was dating a woman. Because knowing Mark, not a dessert guy, not a food guy, and yet he felt like because he's dating someone that he has to order a dessert to make them happy.
I mean, it's been decades since I was in that situation.
How long did it take you to get out of the dessert phase usually before they knew you hated food?
Well, like I said, you get about 3 months in, and we get past this.
When's the last time your wife, Simone, has ever had that course after dinner?
I have purchased
18
dessert
years.
with
now
her.
you guys have been together so long,
Yeah.
she just gets her own dessert, and you don't feel the need to eat it with her, right?
I mean,
That's
Greg, are you
comfort,
spying
right?
on my house? That's not exactly how it works.
No?
but,
I'm just saying that's how it goes.
She will be. I will purchase dessert for anyone who wants it at this point.
You cannot eat it around me, but you can
won't
have
it yourself.
I don't care about
Right,
sweets
yeah, you won't
so much.
force yourself.
Nobody cares about this Panthers segment we just did.
Falcons.
I liked it.
Every fantasy owner, incessant Kyle Pitts 458-0 slash lines are super annoying. I do have a fantasy team. I'm trying to clinch a regular season title this week. And it's like, what would be great? If this incredibly talented tight end, this rookie number 4 overall pick, who, by the way, already did break out. It happened in October. He had a 3-week stretch where he was uncoverable. Greg called him better than Jamar Chase, I remember. And, like, ever since that little stretch,
I mean, Chase hasn't done much since.
458-0, 458-0, 458-0, 458-0. You could look it up. Check the game log. 458-0, 458-0, 458-0, 458-0.
I think you're annoyed
Sick
by
of it.
It's the touchdown thing because he's third in the league among tight ends in yardage. I mean, it's not a total disaster, but I think he's stuck in an offense where they're doing the Belichick thing. You take away Kyle Pitts, and you can have Cordero Patterson run over us. We'll see if Matt Ryan throws for more than 200 yards in a game. They're depleted, and Kyle Pitts is getting all the attention.
And like the 4 catches he makes, 'cause I know not a lot of people are watching the Falcons every week. They're like great catches, usually contested. Matt Ryan, like I think he's a very impressive player, but I can imagine it's annoying. That little segment where they were showing balls bouncing off his hand, that was unfair because he's got great hands.
Yeah, it's not that Kyle Pitts is having a bad year.
He has 3 drops on the year, which is, I guess, like 1 more than you'd want, but that's fine.
The most annoyed Dan's been with anyone else ever in his fantasy conundrum on our show has been Matt Ryan. So you signed up for Matt Ryan again, though.
For you. There's some guy that annoys you.
Matt Ryan, yes, it's true. And this year it's Kyle Pitts, but I don't put it on him. I put it on the Falcons.
But the playoffs are what matters. He can be a legend now. The fantasy playoffs.
I mean, if you make the playoffs.
And just out of curiosity, let me just check his actual stat line. Since he went 9-1-19-1 against the Jets in London, 7-163 the next week against Miami. Since then, 2 for 13, 3 for 62, 4 for 60, 3 for 29, 2 for 26, 4 for 48. Annoying. Annoying. Let's move on. Saints. I wish we had thought bubble access to Sean Payton these days. Because I'm not saying the season's not over from New Orleans, even though it feels like it is, because the NFC is so crazy in the back end. They could still be in the mix with a win this week, and maybe they string together some W's. And I don't put it past them because they're strong organizationally, and the head coach is great, and the coaching staff is solid, and the defense is good. Now, that said, I want to know what Sean Payton thinks about his quarterback position. Like, is he watching these Taysom Hill starts, like, trying to decide whether to give him the team next year? Is he see Jameis Winston as a guy in rehabbing that he'll turn to next year when he gets healthy? Or has he already turned the page mentally and he's ready to find a new passer for 2022? I'm just wondering where he's at.
I think he's like Saints fans, who are thinking they never want to go through this again. That this plan to come in with no talent other than Michael Thomas, who never showed up, never got healthy, which you could have seen coming anyways, was a terrible one, and that Jameis Winston is a backup option, and that they want themselves some Russell Wilson or some Aaron Rodgers or something different than what they've had this year.
I totally agree. I kind of have always viewed this as what the Patriots did last year, where Sean Payton liked the challenge of Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, and getting through a season with that and doing the best he can. And I thought he was a Coach of the Year candidate for much of this year until the floor fell out. But next year is not bringing this back. It is going after Russell Wilson is the number one candidate I think about, or draft someone. I mean, maybe we see Ian Book before this season ends too. I mean, I don't think that's the target either, but it can't be this again.
The book is closed.
I mean, he gave Taysom all that money. We do have four or five starts here to go. He is starting this week.
If they can make it happen financially, doesn't Sean Payton making a big splash for a veteran quarterback kind of feel like something that could happen?
100%.
Absolutely.
That feels like
100%.
me.
Who are those big splashes? In theory, it's Russell Wilson is the number one. But are they really going to let him go to like some team that they used to play in the NFC playoffs every other year? I don't know.
Don't know. Matt Ryan? No.
Ooh.
Inside the division.
I have said this year, if they had Matt Ryan on this team, like that's a playoff team. That's a frisky 6.
A splash is coming. I don't think it comes through the draft because I think Peyton doesn't want to grow with a quarterback. I don't know. Belichick did. Interesting. That's why I want the thought bubbles. All right. Coming up next, before we move on to the AFC, our award-winning. We have so many awards for this show.
It's crazy.
Segment. Who's better? Who's better? Who is better, Matt Stafford or history? All right, welcome back. It's time for Who's Better, presented by Truist.
Love me some Truist.
Love it. And let us start with this one. Matthew Stafford,
Thank you.
or history itself. Did you know that Matty Stafford is 0?
Matthew.
And Matthew Stafford is 0-9 versus teams with 10+ wins in his career. Is history about to repeat itself, Mark?
I think history has been split into two because a lot of that history had to do with the Detroit Lions. I mean, it's like
Sure.
it's
All of
not
it.
just
All of
Matthew
it.
Stafford playing like tennis against someone. It's Matthew Stafford surrounded by a largely failing organization. So
What
he's
does
in-
tennis have to do with this?
I'm saying you could say Matthew Stafford operated.
You know what's interesting? I
alone.
think he was kind of a big deal
I see.
junior tennis player. Did you know that?
I did not.
That is
Greg,
a
I've not
true-
tracked
that is
the
a true story.
pre-football tennis career of Matthew
He
Stafford.
went
think
by
him and-
Matty Stafford.
Him
when
and
he was
Breeze
tennis.
both,
Back then,
That's
were
why.
both like tennis
Connect.
guys, I remember, back in the day. That I think history is going to win this week because I picked the Cardinals. And everyone's going to say, well, it doesn't have anything to do with Matthew Stafford.
Matt Stafford.
I think he's been a very good quarterback this year, but I don't think he's been any better or worse than he was with the Lions. And I never thought he was like a top 8 quarterback with the Lions, and he's still not. So
Yeah,
that,
you
know,
made
I
that
think
point a
that's
couple
just
times, but what is the?
that's my
who
point.
Who's that in response to? That were people pumping him up as more than very good? Because that's what he's really given us.
Too
that.
much MVP pop.
I
guess.
think people are
That was the
projecting
thing.
him to be
He's
like
going to win the
Creed.
MVP. He was the betting favorite.
MVP is a mess this year. I think it was more out of like people throwing up their
Okay.
hands. You know,
People are like, oh, you know what? He looks so summery and in shape now that he's in LA. He looks happy and like he came out of the gate on
I'm sure he
fire. And it
was.
was like there were.
He made some throws in
Projections.
that game last week against Jacksonville, and everyone's like, "Oh, it was against the Jaguars," but they were just those some beautiful.
I'm sure he didn't even need a plane to fly to LA after the trade. I'm sure he was happy in summary, as you put it, when he got to Los Angeles. What a great reset on his career. And on balance, it's been good.
All because, like, what? Sean McVay and Stafford both picked the same resort in Cabo?
That will always be fishy to me.
Yeah.
We don't have time
Like he
for
would
that.
be in Washington otherwise? What?
All
Something's
right, another
wrong
week
today.
14. Who's better? Cowboys' #1 offense or Washington's top 10 defense
Ooh.
in the last 4 games?
You know I'm going with the Cowboys. I don't believe
We all
in
know.
defense in general in 2021, at least not keeping it going week after week, and definitely not against this Dallas team. This Washington team, like, they're well coached, but I don't see a ton of playmakers other than Jonathan Allen.
It feels like the end of Washington's pretty little journey that we've been experiencing.
burying them.
And you too, we already know where you're at with this. I always would go offense too, though. I think that Dallas is ready to break out of the minor slump they've been in. Again, we've talked about people that have not been in the lineup. They're getting healthier. What's to not like?
We know what Mark's going to be thinking on Sunday, though, Dan. The locks competition with you taking the Cowboys. He is going to
intensity.
be dying. and
Whoa,
rooting for
living and
Taylor
dying.
Heineke.
On that lock pick. It also depends what version of Dak Prescott shows up, but we've already covered that. Like, if it's the Dak that's scattershot, Washington's going to have some good fortune in this. But, by the way, Montez Sweat was supposed to come back, had a busted jaw, was ready to come back, now got COVID, didn't get the jab. Nice job there. So now he's out multiple weeks potentially.
It's been a rough couple of weeks for not young, but sweaty. Part of young
A
and
year
sweaty.
of young and sweaty has not come together the
not
way
right.
And yet the defense
nickname
is
should.
better without Young and Sweaty. It's very strange.
Strange. 2021 is strange. That was Who's Better, presented by Truist.
Truist.
AFC time.
AFC North coming up.
All right.
Oh, Marky, the Cleveland Browns, the dog pound. Let's dig in about their chances this week.
Let us.
right, welcome back to the broadcast. It is time to turn our attention to the AFC North Division. Why don't you get us started, Greg, on the Steelers?
Well, they entertained us Thursday night. That was great. And yet I'm going to take a very negative angle here. Remember those takes last week about, hey, TJ Watt, he's not just Defensive Player of the Year. He might be the MVP of the whole league. You don't want that when you have a take. You want to make it to Sunday at least.
Yeah, but all right, this is bad.
It was a bad take.
Because if he has 2 or 3 sacks on Thursday night and doesn't pull his groin, this is not your take.
But you're right.
So you're because he got hurt, it's now a bad take.
Well,
who could control that?
First of all, he's been hurt 3 different times this year. I think he was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and he's still a strong one. It was ridiculous to say that he would have been the MVP of the league. He actually has fewer pressures this year by far than any other season in the last 4 or 5 years. It was just one of those things that one person said it, and for some reason, literally every show someone had to say this take. It's where did this come from? No one was.
You know where it's coming from because we don't have that absolute clear-cut group of quarterbacks to point to as MVP.
But
so we're trying to get creative.
He's not remotely having as good a season as he had last year or the year before. So
remotely,
I'm just saying it was bad luck for you. You had that take and you only got to Thursday, and you're watching this and be like, well, that takes over.
But he got hurt.
That takes over.
There is no clear-cut MVP. That's why people were talking Jonathan Taylor 2 weeks ago. And by the way, this is what we do in our industry, Greg. We have fun and mix things up.
Right, and then that's what I'm doing. I'm having fun and I'm mixing it up.
You're putting the kibosh on it.
I'm pointing out what I thought was a bad take to begin with, and it got even worse Thursday night.
But if he doesn't get hurt on Thursday and he has 2 sacks, is it still a bad take?
I think so.
If he has 18 sacks
what if he takes down Kirk Cousins in a game-winning sack?
I was the one who was pushing for Aaron Donald MVP maybe a year or 2 ago, or TJ Watt in that 2013
I see where you're
season.
going with this.
And TJ Watt's not having anywhere close.
So this is the more blasphemous thing is you're trying to insinuate Watt's not actually having a great year this year.
He's having a very good year. It's not one of his best years, I don't think.
Spicy. Mark, Ravens.
Ravens. You remember these books from our youth? Maybe you read them?
I only know Nancy Drew because you've referenced it approximately 1,000 times in the course of our podcast history. I don't even know what it is.
We've worked together too long.
Girl detective with quite a resume. She's on a new case, Nancy Drew, and the case of Baltimore's bumbling ball movers. What is going on with this Ravens offense? 5 touchdowns in 4 weeks. The mistakes are piling up.
Boring.
It's ever since sort of the cover 0 Miami Dolphins game that you just look at what's happening. And I think Lamar Jackson escapes certain criticism because he does things that amaze our eyes. But his mistakes in this offense have cost them. I would point to that first drive last week. Everyone wants to talk about the 2-point conversion at the end. How about the first drive? They go 6.5 minutes. He throws a terrible pick. They come away with no points.
That was
one of the worst interceptions of the year.
And yet he made almost the exact same pass against Cleveland, and it worked, and everyone's like, wow, that's Lamar making a play. I think that's a fair point. He's made a lot of bad decisions lately. They've updated the whole Nancy Drew thing. Still popular.
In what way?
My daughter read something called Fancy. No, it wasn't Fancy. They made it into a little kids version. Were you a Hardy Boys guy?
I dipped into Hardy Boys. There was a Hardy Boys detective manual, about 60 books back then, and Nancy Drew was their friend.
Do you know Lamar Jackson does not have a rushing touchdown, bringing it back, since week 2? And those special plays that have defined Lamar Jackson in his first 4 years in the league, they're just not there. It's just and I know he had that amazing quasi-lucky drop back against the Browns, but otherwise, you watch these games and you wait for Lamar to be special, and it's not happening. And they've survived a lot of weeks because they've found ways to win late in the games, but they need him to be better. And I agree, and maybe it's the coaching staff needs to be better too because they haven't adjusted, but Lamar needs to be better if they're actually a Super Bowl candidate.
They also have 20 people on IR, so I give them credit for their resilience, but we're used to them dominating then and getting thumped in January. It just might happen a little earlier.
All right, Mark. Time for a reality check.
Ooh.
You like this term, so I'll use it. Win or dirt nap time for the Brownies. And I know you say, oh, no, Zeuser. No, Blue Eyes. No, Dan Zeus. No, it's not dirt nap time. The AFC's wide open. The Browns can lose and still be okay in the playoff hunt. No. The Browns allow another division rival to come into their building and thump them and drop them to 6 and 7, you might as well begin the preparation for 2022 because it ain't happening for this team. And not only do I think they don't bounce back from a loss this week, I think the walls can come in and it could be a situation where there's a lot of ugly chatter leaking out of the building, like ugly stuff. So, Mark, gotta win. Just gotta find a way here.
Biggest game of your life, I would say.
I would say so.
Life? No. I'm with you 100%. I mean, their losses this season have been so disappointing. And their injury luck has been bad too, but this team has been out of sync. It's a complete polar opposite from a year ago when I thought they were so coached so well on game days. They were unified. I hate this matchup this week too. No David Njoku, no Harrison Bryant. They love 3 tight end sets, and we can say that doesn't matter. I think it's going to matter. By the way, they have
it matters, but they're way healthier than the Ravens.
They are
they've
healthier.
Lost even less significant.
They have their
this
linebacker.
Week alone,
their
Marlon
linebacker is punting this week. I'm just saying weird things are happening
Sign
in
a
the
punter.
NFL. Well, I mean, that's
This isn't 1954.
That's the situation at the moment. I'm sure they will. But I'm with you that I think if they lose this, you've been swept by the Ravens. They had a terrible loss to the Steelers. I know they beat the Bengals, but I would argue the Bengals are a better team than the Browns right now. Back in the spring, if we said they're the 4th team in this division, after this week, if they lose, no one would have bought that.
Right. Plus, it's the AFC is very different. I hesitate to say it's dirt nap time with 4 games to go for most of these teams, but the AFC is different. If they go to 6 and 7, they're 12th or 13th in the conference.
Right.
And 10 and 7 is the minimum it's going to take for an AFC team, I think, to get those wild card spots. Whereas in the NFC, you can mess around a little bit at 7 or 8 losses.
One last thing. Browns coming off their bye. That means Baker got some time. He's been all beat up. Does he look healthier? Does he play better when he returns? Because if he doesn't and he's the same guy, why is he playing?
He's under pressure there. I mean, as much as he's been in his entire career.
Greggy on the Bengals.
I'm not sure how it happened, but I think Joe Burrow has been underrated this year. Like, I think he has taken a huge second-year leap, and maybe it's the interception numbers. They are high. Some of them have been fluky. Most of them, I think, have been understandable.
Go check that Jamar Chase interception last week and tell me if that's on Joe Burrow.
Right, exactly. I mean, Jamar Chase has dropped 3 or 4 touchdowns, so the TD interception ratio would look a little different. I think throughout this season, also, Burrow has really gotten better. You look at him and the decisions that he makes, how he sees the field so quickly. Man, I just think, like, to me, it would have been heresy to compare Herbert and Burrow a year ago long term. And now I think that's a conversation because I am absolutely convinced Burrow is going to have an amazing career.
I don't know about underrated. I mean, maybe it's people are slow to the draw on how good he's been. And I think you're right. He leads the league in picks, but a bunch of them have just not been on him. And I think we kind of forgive interceptions all over the place. Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the division in my book.
Under pressure all throughout last week. I thought he played so well. Their offensive line was terrible a week ago. He had that injury, and he played great to the
I would say Lamar probably to me is the best quarterback in the division.
Not right now.
But not this year. I think Joe Burrow has been the most consistent player in the division. He's stayed healthy. He's obviously a very tough dude. He's got this pinky issue, which you got to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think interceptions, listen, you could forgive interceptions if you're an explosive passer, which he has been with the big plays. So, yeah, I think he's a lot of fun to watch. And barring a meltdown or an injury, knock on glass, I already feel like the season is a success for Cincinnati, that they've reset the franchise and they feel like they're respectable and ready to go.
And their meltdowns have been on defense. We don't have 4 bad Burrow games to look at. I mean, he's been very consistent.
You're totally right, and yet because they were 7 and 4, if they don't make the playoffs, to Bengals fans, I think it's going to
be a problem.
It's going to feel like.
I know. Well, listen, if they go 7 and 10 or something,
I agree with you.
Even if they go, what is that? I don't even know how to figure out records
8 and
anymore.
9.
8 and 9. I don't see it as a huge
That'll feel like a
bad
letdown.
season. It will feel like a letdown,
1 and 5
but
to end the year.
they're just going in the right direction. All right, we're going in the right direction. That away. Up next, the AFC West. This is a hard division to make sense of because even the leaders on a winning streak don't make sense. We hit this division next. All right, we're back here on the broadcast, and now it's time to hit the AFC West division. And let us start with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll get us going on this one. Is this the saddest 5-game winning streak ever? And I know it's all relative, obviously, and it speaks to the greatness of the Chiefs over the last half decade or so. But have you ever felt like a team was in a less comfortable place in the middle of a 5-game winning streak? Because it certainly feels like this team still is a little bit out of sync.
It's been, we watched them together last week on the big screen, and it's just an underwhelming experience. I think it's like when someone in your life changes and like they think it's good that they're changing, but you're not so excited about it, or vice versa. And like the Chiefs have changed. They're winning games differently, and yet we're left wanting because the explosive offense from years past does not exist right now.
It's funny because Chiefs fans are now starting to push back and being like, hey, like if other teams were winning by, 10 points and, holding defense, they'd be getting a lot of credit. But they know. They know deep in their heart.
Right. Yep.
Because Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are feeling that way too. Like, it's great that they're winning games as they're having these struggles. But in their last 6 games, they've scored more than 22 points one time. And that's, by the way, last week they only scored that much because of the defense. They've only had more than 375 yards. One time. Now that came against the Raiders, so maybe this is happy.
Yeah, last week they had a pick 6, and they had a special teams turnover that they went 3 and out on and kicked the field goal. So they really scored 12 points on offense. That's where we're at, and I guess that's to me one of the biggest plot lines of the entire season going forward. Can the Chiefs unlock their offense, or is the offense just broken and it's something that needs to be fixed come March and April and May?
We've been collectively, begging for it, saying it's going to happen, guaranteeing it's going to happen, and it's just not happening. I think this is the team we've got right now.
That's not going to be good enough. I know they're winning games, and I know Spagnuolo and the defense deserves credit, but they will get picked off if they don't find a way to become more explosive again on offense. Speaking of team that is no longer explosive on offense, Mark, the Raiders.
The Raiders, how about this? Obey me. Don't be last week's hyper underwhelming Broncos team that, yes, they faced the Chiefs. And Denver's season essentially over because they were axed by the Chiefs.
Got it.
This Raiders team, I really would like to see them step up. They have been, on offense, really a mess. I mean, averaging like 14, 15 points a game in a slew of these. They were wiped out by Kansas City. They were built, like all the teams in the AFC West, to compete and beat the Chiefs. And last year we saw Derek Carr and the Raiders do that. But what happened in this first game was a mess. So I think this is your season. This is your season, Las Vegas. Make it happen.
Unpopular opinion alert.
Okay.
Are we starting to see the effects of losing your offensive architect to a stunning resignation come out in the back end of the season? No John Gruden, and now the offense feels like it's adrift.
They did melt the last couple of years with Gruden, but I think it's a fair question.
And when you watch them, you don't think they're like a terrible offense. They do move the ball. It's like these long drives and not many possessions. I'm more interested in the obey me thing because now this is back-to-back weeks, right, Mark?
No, I think I threw an obey me.
This is like your thing now. Like Dan's got the Redken molding paste. That's kind of
work hard
that's his
molding
brand.
paste.
Yeah.
Obey me is your brand.
It's my thing. It's not worked. The last one was telling the Browns to beat the Ravens the first time around, and they didn't obey anyone. So.
Do you think maybe it has like the reverse effect?
Probably if it's playing inside like their team comics, like this clown telling us what to do. That's
we're going to stick it to him. We're going to suck this week.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Without Darren Waller, they're just. I don't know. They don't have enough answers. Like, think Derek Carr, like last week was a perfect example. He played like a B game. He played pretty well. But when he had a couple throws to make, he absolutely had to make, he didn't make them.
They just feel a little rudderless. And, like, the running game is okay, not good. They don't have, like, a deep passing game. And now when you take out Ruggs, you took out Ruggs and you take out Waller, it's just like what's left. And I think Carr is kind of back where he was, like looking for answers, and he doesn't have enough help.
Running out of gas.
So, Greg, the Bolts.
I want to know if aggro Justin Herbert is here to stay. It's like everyone listened to sports radio last week, at least Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator. How come they're not, making big plays on first and second down?
My barber, George.
Right. How come, you don't go 20-plus yards down the field? Justin Herbert set his career record for completions over 20 yards and attempts a week ago. He listened to George, your barber.
You know what I see here? Look at this. He got a lot of one guy on one guy coverage here, which they were not giving to him in previous weeks. So that's a little bit on the Bengals, but he totally can take advantage of it when that situation arises. And to your question, why take your foot off the gas? Keep dealing ace after ace.
Look at this throw. Look at this.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, that's so
There was a great line from Charles Davis on the touchdown pass to Guyton. He said on the telecast, he said, that play is not in every playbook. Which is saying, like, if you don't have Justin Herbert, if you don't have a guy with a, wait for it, howitzer for a throwing arm, you cannot even put that in your playbook to drift across the field on one side, throw across the hashes all the way to the corner to beat the safety over. It's just like that doesn't happen, and don't go away from it. Like, if you have an advantage that other teams can't match, attack. Be like Joe Namath.
The great Al Davis once said, there's a cliche in football, like take what the defense gives you. He said, how about we just take what we want? I like that quote, and I like that when it comes to Justin Herbert. Take what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's closer to obey me. I like the tone of it.
All right, any other thoughts on the chart? They're going to probably disappoint their fan base.
No, light up these Giants and then get to that Thursday night game.
This is a spot for the Chargers, though, where they would annoyingly let a bad Giants team hang around. I'm not saying beat them, but, like, hey, Chargers, show us something. Obey us.
Blow up like a 40-burger.
Blow them out, because I'm all about, like, what special games do we have left in the season? Herbert, Mahomes, Thursday Night Football next week. If they're both coming off wins with some, that's a nice little game there.
All right, finally, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 6-6, and the great Bill Parcells, the big tuna, has a famous line, you are what your record says you are. And the Broncos are a 500 team. And I can't, after watching Sunday Night Football and Teddy coming up small against the Chiefs, and in general, they just felt like they weren't ready for that spot.
Worst game of the season.
It's
really,
just like,
really hurt the movement.
This is just, they're a team that you could keep an eye on just because the playoff picture is muddled. But, like, am I buying in at all on Denver? No, I just can't do it.
I don't like teams like this that are built around a primarily defensive push. That's what we're going to be. And you need Teddy Bridgewater, and he's had a bunch of games where he didn't make a mistake and they're competitive. But if you get last week's where he starts throwing bad interceptions, there's no chance to win. It's not just a Teddy thing. It's just like this team is not built correctly.
They're inconsistent. They've had games where their offense has carried them. They've had games where their defense has carried them, but they both end up ultimately, like Dan says, in the middle, and that's a 6-6 team. And they're probably going to win this week against the Lions and get to 7-6. They probably will be in that playoff picture until the end because of this.
This is going to be uncomfortable, Greg, because I know you're a big Teddy fan, and I'm not trying to poke the bear here.
It was his worst game of the season on Sunday night.
Not even that.
In front of everyone else. That's true.
Teddy, the rap on Teddy is that he's not an explosive, talented quarterback. He's not a guy that can carry a team. The positive, the way to spin Teddy as a guy that you can get behind is that he is a great game manager. He keeps you in games. He doesn't make stupid mistakes. But he does make mistakes. Like, I think that kind of gets overlooked. Like, he does have a lot of head-scratching errors and turnovers. And when you mix that with a guy that doesn't make a lot of big plays, that's when they get in trouble.
Usually when they trail, and they have not been good when they've trailed in games. When he needs to throw it and force it, that's when he gets in trouble. But I blame it more on the roster construction. This was all about having a top 10, top 5 defense. It's true, though, and their defense has been worse than their offense on balance this year.
I just say this. Look at the other quarterbacks in that division. And you went in with Teddy Bridgewater. It's not a neg on Teddy Bridgewater, but it's just like, where's this going to lead? It's leading exactly where it is.
Teddy, like his, because I don't think
they're going to get over their over/under here. That's 6-6.
That's good.
Is that your goal, though?
Bridgewater's future is Denver. I wonder if he's going to become the new Ryan Fitzpatrick, where he will, because he's well-liked and smart and knows how to jump in with a new team, will just kind of cycle through teams for 8 or 9 years.
They're already doing it. You're right.
Yeah, he kind of is. All right, there's the AFC West. Up next, we move to the other side of the country, the AFC East. After that Bills-Pats game in the wind, we see where this division is up next on the broadcast.
This division's on a bye. That's what it is. Well, half of it.
Well. All right, we move on. It is time to hit the AFC East, and we will start with the team everybody thought was going to win the division, but it ain't looking that way. Greg, the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, I'm just throwing it out there, not hoping this happens. I'm asking, is Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator of the Bills, in trouble?
Dude.
That he could go from getting these head coaching interviews to not being with the Bills next year. I'm basing this more on the people that are there every day, watching Sean McDermott's press conference, and some pointing out it's starting to sound a lot like 2017 when I believe it was Rick Dennison, and the way McDermott was talking about him in press conferences ultimately led to a change.
You definitely have a different version of McDermott right now in these pressers, and it got hot after the Patriots loss. I think you have to look at the body of work, that Brian Daboll is also the person that turned Josh Allen from a guy that half the people that cover football didn't believe in to an MVP candidate. That development is partly on Brian Daboll. They work together so well. They've just regressed as an overall offense. It's like, first of all, you can't run the ball. I mean, are we really going to move on from Brian Daboll?
Like, Sean McDermott is one of the more powerful head coaches, right, structure-wise, in the AFC. Like, he needs to bear some responsibility for not getting a player in the building that can run the football. Matt Breida doesn't even know how to take a handoff. Zach Moss hasn't worked out. Devin Singletary hasn't worked out. So when you don't have somebody you could trust to run the football, especially like on Monday night, for instance, a perfect example, you really put a team in a tough spot because you lose that balance. I think that has been part of this, too. They need to go out and get a running back that they can believe in.
And an offensive line that they feel like is physical and tough up front. It worked so well that you felt like they came back this year and maybe they didn't evolve enough. You always kind of, I think that's one thing I think Brian Daboll learned from Bill Belichick. You know, he was a Patriots assistant a long time. When their offense worked in 2010, they go the hyperspeed route. It's like they still changed it in 2011. Like, you got to always keep changing. It felt like they kind of came back with the same play.
That's fair. And when you hear like the Monday Night Football guys sharing a nug like, hey, we've been talking, we were talking to the team and Stephon Diggs is going to start getting the ball more. They thought maybe they were spreading it out too much. Now they're going to focus on Diggs. There's probably some stuff going on behind the scenes like, well, our scheme not working this year. Sometimes you got to read between the lines on the
you've done that to a next level.
Play NFL Knockout, the free-to-play game presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Answer 15 questions about the Bills-Bucks game. What a matchup. To win exclusive prizes, including a VIP package to this year's Super Bowl 56, right here in Mark Sessler's backyard, Los Angeles. Visit NFL.com/knockout. Stay on Mark's couch.
None of that is accurate.
All right. Patriots, how about this? Great position now, the Patriots. I think of like who's been most important and instrumental in the Pats in this big season they're having. How about Matt Judon? How about the door is open for Mr. Judon now to win Defensive Player of the Year? TJ Watt, not MVP. I wouldn't dare say that. I don't want to upset Greg. But now that TJ Watt's injured and apparently his groin injury isn't serious, I feel like Judon hasn't gotten enough buzz as a guy that should be in the mix because he has kind of transformed that front seven, hasn't he, Greg?
I think he has an outside chance. I think Myles Garrett and TJ Watt are right there at the top, but you're right. If they get the 1 seed and Judon closes very strong, if it was like the NBA where you got to vote on 5 guys, I like that better. Like, he would be in my top 5 where he gets some votes.
Best
right now.
free agent signing in the NFL. I mean, it's like, I know that they went mad and signed
What's
everyone.
the top 3?
Top 3?
Yeah.
I'll give you one, Matt Judon, and I'll think about the other 2. But I mean, no, those things don't often work.
Number 2, Kendrick Bourne. Number 3,
no, not
Hunter Henry.
But
I don't know.
He's fit in so well with their defense. I hear you on the Defensive Player of the Year thing. I know you're a little down on Myles Garrett though, too, Dan.
I would give it to Garrett
with the Halloween costume after they lost to the Steelers.
I'm with you.
That's a tough one.
But if he has, because I know how these votes go, if he has 5 more sacks than Judon, that's going to be tough.
I think Judon's like a good reminder for Bill Belichick about like. That talent matters. Like, players that are sometimes more important than your scheme, because you know what Matt Judon did a couple times in that Buffalo game? He did not set the edge. He allowed Josh Allen to run down the field. That is like a Patriots no-no number one that usually gets you benched. And Judon's done it a handful of times. You want to know why? Because he's trying to go make a big play. And you know what? He has made enough of those big plays by far that it's worth it. It reminds me a little bit of Chandler Jones, who he got sick of after a while because he didn't always do what Bill wanted. But you know what? Players like win games. Judon's one of the players.
Brief aside, some big-time free agent acquisitions this year. Trey Hendrickson,
Oh, yeah, that's
Cincinnati. Matt Judon, Patriots. Yannick Ngakoue, Raiders. Joe Thuney, Kansas City. Corey Linsley, Chargers. I don't know.
I think Hendrickson is like right.
I would go with Judon as the best one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Yeah, just needed that context. That's all.
Well, thank you for that.
Corey
We all
Linsley
thank you.
somewhere thinking like, thanks for mentioning me, guys.
Nothing's better than like dropping a cold call question on some guy in the middle of a show. It's like,
Mark on the Dolphins.
please. So it's like the Backstreet Boys said, quit playing games with my heart, Dolphins. Like I have my list of pet teams, and they're rising because they're 1-7 at one point. They're 6-7. We've been tracking this on the show every week. Can they sneak into the playoffs? And it's not a sneak at this point. They've got the Jets and the Saints after this bye. They'd be 8-7 at that point. Then we'll find out who you are. You've got the Titans and the Pats. I'm just saying they're hard not to be fascinated with on some level with the way that the defense has risen. I think the Tua's been the dude. This Dolphins team is a little spicy.
Their rookies have been great. Javon Holland's been a beast. Jalen Phillips is a beast. Jalen Waddle, even a bigger beast. That's who I meant. Like, they've got multiple Jalens who are beasts. And they play in the same game every week, though, which is against some lackluster offense, and the score is 17-9 in the fourth quarter. You're like, is this a close game? I don't really know. And then they win it, and that they deserve credit for that. I don't know if they've been fascinating to me.
I feel like they're
beyond that Ravens game.
A little bit better version of Washington, but I don't feel too much different about either of them. I mean, that Ravens Thursday night game that kind of jump-started their season,
right.
That was obviously an impressive win. Even though the Ravens haven't been overly impressive. But they've beaten the Texans, Ravens, Jets, Panthers, Giants. Now a bye week, now the Jets. That's pretty good schedule. So
yeah, it's helping them out.
While they deserve a ton of credit for getting off the mat, do I feel like I'm watching a superpower on the rise? I'm not there.
Are they not, though, now looking like the team they were a year ago and the year before on the floors, where they were,
they were supposed to be better than
I
last
think
year.
they also
They are better
massively
because they're getting better
underwhelmed.
quarterback play. I mean,
He's been good.
I think, I guess Fitzpatrick, he's, to me, it's very different than Fitzpatrick, but I think he's giving similar level of quarterback play as Fitzpatrick.
He's a good match for where they are right now because he's playing smart, sensible football. He throws a good ball, and then the defense is carrying the team. I just want to see it against better competition. Personally.
That's fair.
The Jets, the boy who shall lead them, Zach Wilson, took a step forward in Week 13. I have not heard that chant in a long time. Can we make it two? Now they get the Saints, okay? And the Saints have a good defense, but the Saints are hardly impenetrable. So I'd like to see Zach Wilson stack some games and show us that he's a guy that is getting better, he's healthy, and he is going to enter 2022 with some momentum. I think that's really important. I really hope Elijah Moore is involved because he is now – there have been 4 Jets quarterbacks this year. Every Jets quarterback has eventually realized Elijah Moore is the best guy on this team. I got to get the ball to him. And now Zach Wilson has as well. You saw that against the Eagles. Will that also continue? Well, Elijah Moore's body has to cooperate. Bad thigh.
I really hope Moore plays. They might be short their top 2 running backs, so they have some injuries on the offensive line. I think this is a bad matchup for a young quarterback. I think Dennis Allen has done a fantastic job. They're getting a little healthier. They get Marcus Davenport back, maybe C.D. Deuce, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So I don't know. If he looks good again, and I'm with you, Zach Wilson looked good last week, definitely looked better. If he can do it against this defense, that'll really show me something.
I mean, it has a lot to do with what we're going to have to talk about for the next 7 months after the season ends. And you'd love to see him close the season and progress. And, it's like Saleh's talked about his footwork last week was the best he's seen all season. He's been better, but it's been such an up and down season that if he doesn't close it out with 3 or 4 strong games, there's going to be some issues.
Are you aware that Zach Wilson has been named the NFL's Pepsi Zero Sugar Rookie of the Week for the 2nd time this season? I mean, that's Pepsi Zero Sugar. That's the real thing.
That's monumental.
I feel like sometimes with these awards, it's almost like they're trying to make a rough situation feel better. Because Jared Goff won Offensive Player of the Week last week, and I was like, huh. Well, yeah, he was
voting
good
on
in that game, but that was definitely like a participation award
Like
for
Zach
Goff.
Wilson.
I'm not saying that about Zach Wilson,
Well,
but there's
Zach
something
Wilson
there.
scored on a short field on their first drive and then 2 more touchdown drives and then didn't have another point. So I guess not a lot of big rookie play.
Maybe
it's
there
not like
wasn't other good rookies last week.
it's not
I
like
don't
Mac
really know.
Jones throwing 3 passes was going to take the award this week.
It was more the Goff thing. I thought, oh, that they're like kind of giving him like a participation trophy because there's no way he was the best player of the week.
The boy who shall lead.
Let him have it, Greg.
I believe in you, Zach. All right.
It's like Justin Jefferson played.
I mean, you might not believe it, but once again, we will finish with the AFC South. They just can't get out of the cellar. So we are going to hit the South next. Does everybody get 2 minutes?
We'll see.
Drama.
All right. It's everybody's favorite division, the American Football Conference Southern Division. Mark, start us with the Titans.
Well, I'm waiting for coma patient Tennessee to awaken. And what I mean by that is, they've...
No, we know what you mean.
They've just been, I wouldn't say they've been asleep at the wheel, but, you lose to Houston, you get killed the next week. It's like they just haven't been able to be what they are. They built a nice, soft advantage for themselves inside the division. The Colts are 1 game back at this point. And, listen, anyone that is in an actual coma will not be watching this, but you know that life is happening around you. I want to see them start to, create their own life and
Former
get back
coma
into
patients
this.
might be watching.
Here-
Though.
They might.
Like,
They would
grateful
understand.
to be alive.
Did you guys ever see
Total respect to coma
the
patients.
1990 Steven Seagal pick, Hard to Kill? He goes into a coma for 8 years after an ambush attack in his home. Wakes up from the coma.
Yeah.
Works out, trains at a dojo, gets the girl that worked at the dojo,
Wow.
then kills all the
Naturally.
guys that shot him. Great movie, great film.
He's like, what? Andrew Luck retired? I thought he was... No.
Oh, spoiler alert. Well, it came out 30 years ago. Anyway.
We'd like to see the Titans do that when they awaken.
It's really a 2-game lead. So if you're a Titans fan freaking out, you know that you have the tiebreaker because you swept the Colts. So it's 1 game out in the standings, but really 2. So you just have to find a way not to totally collapse. Perfect time for the Jaguars to come in, get your layup here, take care of business, and then steady things. Maybe you continue to get healthy. Maybe A.J. Brown enters the picture. Julio Jones perhaps makes a play this season, and hopefully Derrick Henry's rehab
Might be
is going
playing
well.
this week, Julio Jones. And the defense, I don't think totally collapsed, even though they certainly had their share of injuries, and they're going to be healthier this week. Tennessee is on the defensive side. They should be able to just shut down Jacksonville.
Jacksonville's been good medicine for
Trevor Lawrence has 1 touchdown in his last 5 games. I think they have only two games since their bye that they have multiple touchdowns.
I mean, they also lost to Houston a couple weeks ago, so. And
Tennessee did. I'm just saying, like, I believe that Tennessee is going to come back. They're going to be feeling fresh. They're going to blow them out.
So the attack on Seagal's character, Mason Storm, went all the way to the top, a top politician named Mason Storm. And his catchphrase was, and you could take that to the bank. Seagal he wakes up from the coma, he sees the TV, the commercial where he says it, and then Seagal says, as Mason Storm, I'll take you to the bank, Senator Trent, the blood bank. Boom. All right, let's move on.
You're a strange individual.
I'm sorry. Jaguars, Mark, quickie. 2 minutes. Let's give them 2. They deserve 2.
Jaguars?
They got 2.
I think it's all slipping away from Urban Meyer at this point.
Yes.
They get 1 minute every week. They haven't improved, so I don't know why they're getting 2.
Are you saying Urban Meyer's getting taken to the blood bank?
I'm not going to go that far based on the anecdote that you just shared and what happened to that person.
And he did take him to the blood bank.
I don't doubt that.
Spoiler alert.
I don't doubt where the movie went with that thing. I hate what is happening right now when you've got Trevor Lawrence, and we talked about this on our show, having to publicly come out and say, James Robinson absolutely should be starting on this offense. Enough with the shenanigans where he's been benched multiple times. We get it. You drafted Travis Etienne. He got hurt. You never were on the James Robinson train, Urban Meyer. But
he's not my guy.
There seems to be a real disconnect between the coach and the star quarterback, and I really wonder where that goes. I really, really do.
Well, we're going to find out what money and contract years mean in the NFL in terms of job security for a coach, because it would make sense he's going to get at least 2 years, you would think, Urban Meyer, because it was just such a monumental deal from what we understand. But at the same time, this year, I mean, if you asked privately Shad Khan, like, could this be any worse? Could you have foreseen it being this bad? He'd say, no way. Who could have predicted this year for him?
Total
for Urban Meyer would be this bad?
No, the press conference, everything about Urban Meyer was like, we did it. Like, we solved it. We got this, we got this coach who was supposedly retired, who's one of the great coaches in history, like, in their minds, and this is what's happening. It does make you wonder, I don't know, does the quarterback have ownership's ear? This is what bad organizations do, is they start asking different questions to different people inside the building, and
there's factions. That's just not good for any of these bad teams.
There were reports that it was a contract worth $10 to $12 million a year. So the financial side of this is very real, because if they ever did want to get out, they would have to continue to pay Urban Meyer and then hire a new coach at a high salary. It's not as cut and dry as, oh, this isn't working, get rid of that guy.
They're still playing Doug Marrone with that extension they gave him after the AFC Championship.
All right, how about the Colts?
They get 2 for sure.
They better get 2.
All right.
2. All right. The big test is approaching for the Colts. Do you guys know who they have next on the schedule?
I do, because it's a Saturday night NFL Network game.
It's New England,
Tune in.
Right? Patriots.
They have back-to-back games.
Colleen Wolfe.
They got the bye to get healthy. Then you get the Patriots. Don't you want to see the Colts against a big-time team? Isn't it time to see how they can fare against the big boy? And the Patriots have graduated to that class. They are a contender. They are an AFC #1 seed right now. I just can't wait. We're sitting on a bye here, so I don't know what to tell you about what's happened to this point. I'm spinning forward, and I just can't wait to see how this team fares against big-time competition, because, again, not to belabor this, they only have 1 victory this season against a team with a above 500 record.
It's also, you've got Josh McDaniels on the other sideline, who there's a little bit of revenge element there, but I think the Colts match up well with New England. I love the idea of them in doing what they did against the Bills, drop 200+ yards on the ground with Jonathan Taylor, and do what the Patriots do. You're a mirror team on some level on offense, and I think it's a great opportunity for them. And then they have the Cardinals the week after.
Sell it, baby. Don't hang out with your family on the last full weekend before Christmas. Park yourself. Watch the game with your family. Me and my son are going to be enjoying this. I think we have seen, like...
You're really ordering people around, Greg.
I know I've got, basically, I signed up for a function that I'm looking forward to. We're sledding in fake snow in Southern California, and now I realize it's during this game because they moved it there late, and that's annoying. They've played a ton of the heavyweights of the season, maybe more than any team. The Titans at their peak, the Bucks at their peak, the Bills, the Ravens at their peak. For the most part, they haven't they've been close and they don't.
They built leads and lost them. I think this team might be a little bit different than those
Bucks
teams
loss
were.
annoyed me because I thought it felt like they were ready to say we're here, and then they were like, no, we're not here yet. But yes, Patriots,
5 turnovers.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on the Colts there. Let's see what comes of it. Finally, the Texans, Greggy. 2 minutes for the Texans. It's been a long year. Let's give them some love. 2 minutes for the Texans.
Give their fans
Absolutely
some love. Oh, no. Well, wait, where is it? Give me it.
Oh, you're killing us.
Thank God.
I just sort of assumed. You know what? This is a mercy decision for their fans, who this organization
Your
has
shirt's freaking me out
forsaken.
on the telecast right now.
Well, it's popping a little
It's
funny.
just got a lot of it's the pattern or something.
Watching these Texans games, they have a home field disadvantage in a way that I never could have imagined. I think the Texans fan base is one of the most underrated, or they're just a truly great fan base. That's a loud stadium. They always packed it. Since they came back, they didn't hold it against, that the NFL left and everything. And now it's so depressing. If there's a fan base out there that deserves to just not be showing up while they're losing 31-0, it's these Texans fans. I don't believe.
Well, who do they have to thank for that? Themselves. I mean, they created a scenario and a team and a roster and a situation.
Not the fans.
No. But I mean, if they don't like their fans booing, how about put a product that's even vaguely watchable on the field?
They don't even boo. They're just not even there.
Well,
Like,
then
if
they're
you
not
watch
the greatest fan base on the planet, please.
I'm
don't
a little
blame
surprised with that take, that the Texans, I never hear them in a conversation of best fans. But you're right. When they put a quality product on the field, that place was rocking. They need to start over, obviously. All right. There you go. That's the AFC South. Coming up next, oh, man, tragedy in the NFL circle this week with the loss of Demaryius Thomas, one of the great wide receivers in Broncos history, left us too soon. We talk about Thomas up next on the broadcast. Welcome back to the broadcast. Really tragic news. Thursday night, we learned that former Denver Broncos wide receiver Demaryius Thomas died at the age of 33. Roswell, Georgia police found him dead in his home. Details at this time are hazy about how this all went down. Terrible tragedy for everyone that's connected to Thomas. And Greg, when you talk about the best, just looking at his career, he really at his peak. When you talk about the best receivers of the 2010s, he's in that conversation.
That 3 or 4 year run with Peyton Manning in Denver, he was going 1,300, 1,400, 1,600 yards every season. He was the best receiver. on the best offense in the history of the NFL. It's kind of crazy because you think about Peyton Manning, you think about everyone else that was there, but that's just a fact. He was the #1 guy, and that was an offense that changed the league.
Yeah, I mean, also there was the connection with Tim Tebow in that playoff game, unforgettable moment that, I mean, I think we all remember where we were, but we had a chance to cover him at a couple Super Bowls with the Broncos, and your mind goes back to that. But I just seeing the outpouring and the response from people that knew him. He did so much in the community as well that, like, there's just not that many people that get that kind of response, and it was everyone on every team he was with, so very missed.
I'll always remember that the Thomas touchdown, because it was a Thomas touchdown. Like Tim Tebow gets the love. 80-yard touchdown in overtime to beat the Steelers. He was such a great playmaker. And who was happier when Peyton Manning replaced Tim Tebow than Demaryius Thomas, because he became an absolute superstar. So absolutely terrible to lose Demaryius Thomas at the young age of 33, and our hearts go out to his family and all the people that knew him. All right, as we close every show, time for Weekend Vibes. Greg, get us going.
Now, I know everyone that watches our TV show also listens to our podcast.
Yes.
And just to those people who listen to the Thursday Night Recap, I got 2 words for you. Strawberry Chuck Truck.
Wow.
I listened.
He listened.
On Thursday night, they said they didn't believe me that I listened to the recap show, and at the end they said, if you've really listened, say strawberry trucks on the next podcast. I'm bad at taking direction. I didn't want to wait till Sunday. I'm saying it now. Strawberry trucks.
You got to give
was
credit.
good.
I get it, and Greg worked on a strawberry truck in his youth.
You
so.
guys chewed the scenery, too. Nice 20.
bit.
I had to get to the end of like 25 minutes.
That's impressive.
There.
That's impressive.
Mark, how about you? That is legit.
Part of my tweet storm last night against the Steelers, I'm a Browns fan, so it's, a little passive-aggressive or just flat-out aggressive. I just said the best thing the Steelers can do, let's put this tweet up, just go 8-1 at this point. It accomplishes 2 tasks. One, you just are what you are, and I think we're good with this point. But 17-game schedule, 8-1, we could go 25 years before that happens. Let's knock it out right now.
Old highlight his own tweet, Sessler. At it again.
That is strange. Yeah, you do
Well,
like
whatever
to
it
read
takes.
your own tweets often. Mike Tomlin's also never had a losing record, and that means a lot to Steelers fans.
There's a
So
genius.
they can
I like
keep
to
that
read
going.
them often. How often?
There's a genius in this building. His name is Noah Young, and out of nowhere, he sends me a message on our instant messenger client with this graphic. And I want the fans to say, it's called The Circle of Life Completed. And he said, hey, if you want to like throw this up, go ahead. I said, what is this? How did you even come up with this? And he wrote, I was thinking about how weird this year is, and specifically how the Jets beating the Titans and the Jags beating the Bills really upset the order of things. So it started as this list in my head following a chain of victories, and at some point I realized there was no end to it. So I sat down and just wrote it out, almost a family tree style with multiple routes it could take. And a couple hours later, I saw that if the Lions beat the Vikings, it would complete this circle of life.
Wait,
is that all 32
And that's
teams?
what happened. That's everyone. And it goes on and on forever. 2021 in a nutshell. And my response to Noah was, I think you may be a genius.
Is he what is his actual job? I mean, this guy sounds very impressive.
I don't know, but the Lions completed the circle of life. And you could just go on and on. Is that very on brand for 2021? Isn't that so on brand?
It also could be
No,
a sign,
no,
like
no.
he could be a genius, or it could be a sign of like a disorder.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Well, that's good. Well, you got a little sugar, a little spice.
Sorry about that, Noah.
That's what Greg is here for. All right. Thank you for everybody for watching. Enjoy the football. We'll be back next week.